Oh man, here they come again.
Here they come again. This still has skin on the skull.
But what's interesting is this interfacing with technology. Is this something that, like, I think you said about 18 people? Is this something that everybody is experiencing, or just a handful? I mean, this sounds like real, like Neuralink type of stuff, only without Elon's stamp of approval on it.
Exactly. It is very much like that. It is, for lack of a better word, the same syndrome, interference syndrome is what they're calling it, but it is the same capability that previously was not understood, which is similar to, I'm sure you've heard of it, people who claim to be able to walk under street lamps and the street lamps will go out. And these other nuts and bolts electromagnetic connections that are impossible to describe. In fact, the CIA doctor, who is Dr. Christopher Kit Green, uh, did research into a member of Israeli intelligence and the military there who was doing some projects. And they time and time again were collecting data on how this individual could interface with, like, I mean, we're talking like major, electronics on a military front. And they couldn't understand how he could be communicating. And it's like you said, it's just, once you're tapped into this universal consciousness, everything is just a thing. And you can engage, interact, and work with that thing. So manipulating things is sort of what consciousness is about.
It's wild because the way you're talking about it, it's like it sounds like, somebody caught a cold, and these are the side effects of catching it, and you caught it because you were around this particular area and it was cold or whatever. And is this something that they're finding once people catch this interface syndrome, that it eventually wears off, or is it continuing to be a prevalent part of their life moving forward?
It is literally like opening Pandora's box. And what they're finding is it defies explanation. But once you open it, you can't close it. They have a widespread range of abilities. Not all, not all things they want, but they are able to master certain things that they didn't even have before. So, an increased sixth sense, so to speak, or intuition. Some of them have it's a psychic adventure, really. So basically, increased psychic abilities are the only way they can explain them. And these are things that, like, Pear Laboratories, DARPA, the DoD, the Pentagon, are very familiar with, working with different institutes such as the Monroe Institute, Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies, et cetera, et cetera. They have a really good uh, record of accomplishment in understanding these things. So when they come forward and say that this is what's taking place, you kind of have to agree with, the invisible college of people like Jacques Vallée, Hal Puthoff, Colm Kelleher, Eric Davis. I mean, just the all-star crew saying, yeah, this is happening.
That's wild. Now, this is your property. You don't live out there. You have a caretaker. But when you do visit, do you ever feel like you caught a little bit of this? Have you ever, like you mentioned about how, there was personal experiences that you've had. Were any of those personal experiences related to this interface syndrome?
So, yes, I was with another individual and we found ourselves investigating a cattle mutilation right there. And it was winter and we got close to it. We were recording and documenting everything. And it wasn't until I came back to my house that I realized something had happened. And in going back through the footage, I saw that the leg, which was closest to the dead animal, was going numb, for lack of a better word. I thought, it wasn't that cold out there. I was bundled up. It can't be frostbite. As the week went on after returning, it went from literally going numb to just not being able to walk on that leg. And I went in and saw my orthopedic surgeon. And when he said, "Hey, this is a neurological injury," I freaked out and I started making calls to some of the people I had mentioned before. Some of the, people way above my pay grade. But I made calls to everybody, to be honest, because I didn't know what I was dealing with, but I knew that I wasn't able to walk, and that really scared me. And as this government investigation goes on, hidden truths have sort of come out of this report that's been leaked in these slides. And one of the hidden truths is that among the symptoms of interference syndrome is neuropathy. And literally, just exactly what I experienced. But, I was given some protocols to do and things to do and ways to work through it. And it all came back 100%, because the bad news was it was neurological. The good news was it was neurological, so it was super scary, but it made, at least to me, it made me realize this is very real. And I'm not the only one. There's a ton of people that have suffered this.
Yeah, and I will say, I have a really bad memory, first off. So I don't remember, and I've seen my own film that's coming out, and it's really good. Theshapeofshadows.com, by the way, if you want to get tickets. I don't know if I said that in the intro or not, but the tickets are available at theshapeofshadows.com, available now, premiering on August 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so in the film, we had all these different experiences, but one thing that I don't remember if it made the film or not, I think it did, but we didn't really focus a whole lot on it, was my producer, Joseph. He arrived to the scene a day before we did. And so he's hitting us up. He's like, "Listen, we got a UFO on footage already. It was broad daylight. He was talking to people in the area, and he's telling us about giants and stuff. And I'm freaking losing my mind in like the middle of like Kansas somewhere. And one of the side effects, though, that he physically experienced while we were there was he was already scheduled for a knee surgery, I believe in August last year, a knee replacement surgery. He had to constantly wear a knee brace because he was in constant pain. He spent about 12 hours on your property. And for the entire week, this was the first time I ever met Joseph in person. I didn't ever meet him before. By the time I got there, he didn't need to wear his knee brace. And he was telling me how, like, I don't need to wear my knee brace. I don't know what's going on here, but ever since I've been here, my knee's been feeling great. The entire week, he did not need to wear a knee brace. And to put it in perspective, about a week, I think, after we left, his knee started hurting. He started wearing the knee brace, and he wound up getting the knee surgery last year. But while he was on the property, he was running around with us. And he's the oldest out of all of us. I'm not saying he's an old man, but he is in his 50s, and he's the oldest out of the crew. And he was running around with us the whole week with no knee brace, no sign of injury, not limping, nothing. And the only thing we can figure out is that it had something to do with the property. And one of the guys that came on the property, James Keenan, while we were there, we met with him. People will see him in the film. He was talking about a lot of the magnetic nature of the land and the property, which I found very interesting. And maybe that had something to do with helping his knee. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But there is something very, very unusual to our understanding about that property. Space Wolf is very special. By the way, I was thinking about this morning. How'd you come up with the name of Space Wolf? Because I love it.
Yes. So there are large canines that are seen in the area, which typically, frighten people. And oftentimes they don't act as normal canines would. And frequently they are followed by a plethora of bizarre phenomena, such as UFOs and UAPs and orbs. And so it just it's kind of a simplified, term. The things that I was most intrigued by were, this connection between cryptozoological things and things that are more aerial in nature. And these things seem to be kind of transversing some type of continuum, some timeline, because there's been a lot of cryptozoological variants which actually existed, but not in our time. So people have seen things similar to the amphisilon, which is sort of a bear dog, big, massive thing. The dire wolf, which obviously doesn't exist in our timeline. For lack of a better word, things they call the dino beaver, which is like a massive prehistoric beaver, and other, creatures that at one time, as you know, that whole area has like tons of dinosaur remnants in the ground. So we can go back in the timeline and actually see what existed there. And there was a lot of very strange animals that existed there. And somehow they have a way of making these intrusions into our timeline and then removing themselves, whether that is just some superficial chaos above, the area itself, because the area has sort of an intrinsic energy, like you were describing. And at times you can kind of feel the ground move a little bit, and a plethora of other strange geological things that are right there in that geographic area, what they call the dinosaur diamond, which is basically like sort of an 80-mile square radius of high strangeness. And it seems that these otherworldly things happen with more capability, more frequency, and more often than other places.